Live for the fastest 2 hours in sports talk radio. Get ready for Chase Robinson.
He has got to be a player they can rely on in big situations.
And Gerhard Mathangani.
Has the trust of his team. Sounds like the makeup of his team is in a really good space, and I believe that's because of the culture he's curated down there.
For WKXX Live, these guys have you covered from preps to pros and everything in between. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
It is a Tuesday afternoon here on WKXX Live. Chase Robinson, Gerhard Mathangani in with you today for the next 2 hours, with you until 4 o'clock on a very sad day in college football. As we told you yesterday, and I'm sure you've heard by now, we talked yesterday. Mississippi State head coach Mike Leach was in critical condition in the hospital last night. Coach Leach did pass away, and he was a guy that everyone loved, and you're seeing that throughout today. Just all of the people around the sport, even in other sports, talking about Mike Leach, but really just it's sad to lose a guy like this. He's one of the good ones, you know. He was different, but he was a really likable coach.
Yeah, no doubt. I think whenever you talk about Mike Leach, the reason why you're seeing, whether it's on social media, television, traditional media, like here and other places, you are hearing this outpour of what he meant in so many different ways, because his life touched so many different avenues. Yes, it touched football, and football is the biggest thing in football, what he's known for. He became a national kind of household name because of the world of football, but he was such an eccentric character just in general that it just felt like he was a football coach alongside these other kind of different personalities. I don't want to call it strange or label it in any kind of negative way, because it's not the traditional route. We're so used to these cookie cutter, coaches that are really myopic about the way that they view football. He was definitely not that at all. And so you're hearing different stories of him sometimes from football, sometimes not from football. And I think that's what kind of lets you know the kind of person he was. But let's take it to football. He did revolutionize the game. Between the lines, he did introduce a concept with the air raid. He and Hal Mumme and others basically changed the way offense was run. For a very long time, it was very run-based. There's only so many things you could do. It's an 11-man game. Yeah. For the most part, you got 5 guys on the line, so you have 6 other players. You have a quarterback, and then you could do whatever you want to with those other 5 guys. And, for the longest time, it was 2 tight ends and run the football, and he spread the whole thing out, and he made defenses have to cover the entire field. And, yeah, it's a little bit different, but you're seeing these concepts intercepted in the NFL. You're seeing these concepts all over high school and in college. And so you add in what he was able to do in football, and then who he was off the field is the reason why you're getting the outpouring that you're getting today.
I saw something earlier. They said his offense and the air raid, you knew what was coming, but you didn't know where it was coming from. Right. 7 to 10 plays on a sheet, but 70 different formations. That's what this offense was. And he was successful everywhere he went. And he was not at these big, bright, shiny football programs. I mean, he at Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State. I mean, he wasn't at these big, successful programs, but he had success wherever he went.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, because he spent some time at some national powers as an assistant coach, places like Oklahoma, but where he took over as head coach are not these football factories. It's Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State. You're seeing a theme of where they play in major conferences. All 3 play in major conferences. All 3 play in the Power 5, but they're not the upper crust of the Power 5. But he was still able to make all those programs relevant in his time there, and it made it just really cool to see how a guy that is he walks a little bit differently, and he acts a little bit differently, but he's still able to get the job done and still make players believe and commit to him and be able to like and appreciate what he's able to do. I heard a great story from Greg McElroy. Heard some great stories also from other college football players. Yesterday, Mac Jones, after the New England Patriots game, he came out and said one of the biggest things for him was that he was able to to get an offer from Mike Leach before really even anybody believed in him. So you're hearing, a lot of guys that whether they played for him or they didn't play for him and they wouldn't play somewhere else, just the outpouring of love support that they had for him, even though they didn't play for him or coach with him in other regards.
Mike Leach, very untraditional guy, but a lot of college football coaches, they play college football, they grad assistant, they move into different roles. Mike Leach took a very unconventional way of getting to be a college football head coach. He didn't play college football. He played rugby at BYU. He then went and got a law degree at Pepperdine. He got a master's in sports science. He was an assistant at Cal Poly and College of the Desert. Coached in Finland. Was the head coach of
the Pori Bears.
In Finland, and then was able to get jobs there, of course, at Valdosta State in Kentucky and Oklahoma. And then was able to get the head job at Texas Tech. But for an unconventional guy, also an unconventional way to get where he was.
Yeah, it's almost a kind of a microcosm of his life. It was an unconventional route to get into Power 5 coaching. And then when you talk about not just he being able to get there, not just he being able to get to a place where he was one of the more prominent guys in that sport, but he was also able to get to a place where he was able to groom other guys. Some of the top guys that are in the sport as we speak today, they are products, whether it's playing for him or whether it's playing, or coaching alongside of him. Sonny Dykes is the guy that comes to mind. Dave Aranda is the guy that comes to mind. So many different coaches that are playing right now that have a big reach right now in the sport of college football. All can attribute at least part of their success to their time spent under Mike Leach.
Josh Heupel, head coach of Tennessee, played at Oklahoma, and he was Leach's prized possession. He recruited Heupel there, and Leach was always very high on Josh Heupel, and look where he is now able to coach. So he's touched so many coaches and players, and which is really cool to see all the people that he's impacted. And again, he had a law degree and never practiced law. He did all these things that are very not college football coach, but he impacted so many college football coaches and players.
Right. That's another thing too. Every time people talk about coaches, the very first thing that comes up normally especially when it comes to these big name guys that have been in the game for a long time, it's the coaching tree. It's who all else have you impacted and how far does their tree go and how far does their tree go? And that's where Mike Leach's legacy will live. It will live in the coaching tree, but also live within his peers that, played, coached against him, played for him, and some of the others. So his impact is far and wide, not just from a schematic standpoint, but then what he was able to do as an offset of that. And you take a guy like, for example, like Cliff Kingsbury, who's right now in the NFL using a lot of his traits. Take a guy like Josh Heupel, like you just talked about. Part of the reason why Tennessee was so good this year is they were able to use elements of the air raid offense. It wasn't pure air raid at Tennessee, but it was a lot of their elements. You saw the building blocks from which he created. So that's where his legacy will live on. He's 61 years old, a very, very young age to pass away. But his impact in college football and professional football, even high school football, will be felt for a really long time.
A lot of coaches have taken to social media, have released statements, but we were able to get a couple of pieces of audio from coaches. One of those being the coach at his rival, Lane Kiffin, at Ole Miss, was able to speak today on Mike Leach.
Yeah, he did, and this is one of the guys I wanted to hear from the beginning. Is one of his arch rivals. His very last game, Mike Leach coached, he won, and he beat Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin talks about that on an appearance in a different media program, but he talks about his affection for Mike Leach and kind of what he meant to him.
I've known him for a long time, and I was thinking, this morning, the first time ever, he just called my office back when you had office phones, and he'd met my dad somewhere and just wanted to talk about offense, and it was like 11 p.m., and he talked for an hour in season. And I was just amazed by how brilliant he was and his stories. And every time, just to think I was just hugging him a couple weeks ago, and I knew something was off in pregame. And, I'm glad that he won his last game and had that last hug with him. And I will really miss his stories. You know, you go out pregame and a lot of coaches don't really want to go talk to, and everybody just says good luck. And I look forward to his every year. And he would never stop. I'd finally have to say, hey, coach, you know, we got to like go play the game. And he's like, well, we're going to meet in Key West, right? You know? So whoever wins the game has to buy the flight down. So that was what he would say every year. So I will miss him, but a wonderful person. We have players that have played with him, coached for him. And for those of you that didn't get to know him, he was really unique and a big heart and a wonderful person, and will really be missed.
Lane Kiffin there on Mike Leach, and even Nick Saban in the statement he released. He said, you know, you never knew what he was going to say in those pregame talks, but you knew you were going to leave laughing.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't going to talk about the traditional things that were talked about in the pregame meeting.
It was going to be something that might be off the wall. It might be about football, like Lane Kiffin was saying. That, you know, sometimes he'll just talk, you know, for an hour in season when he's supposed to be game planning about something from an offensive strategy. So you didn't know what he was going to bring up, and I feel like he would be the best, especially with coaches in those coaches meetings in the summertime or at SEC media days, where you're not game planning for the next thing, and you just don't know what off the wall thing you'll get. And it was just, I'm sure those meetings, only coaches, I think, got that side of him. I think everybody got a different eccentric side of him, but only coaches are able to understand how in the world are you able to process this and still get ready for a game and still have your team play well.
Ryan Day, Ohio State head coach, also spoke out today about Mike Leach.
Yeah, held a press conference today, and obviously one of the first things he mentioned was Mike Leach and some of their times together and just his impact overall on college football.
I met Coach Leach a couple times, and certainly have a tremendous amount of respect, and certainly want to really send prayers and thoughts out to his family and to all those down at Mississippi State and all the folks that he's coached with and for, and the players. It's just 61 years old. It's just it really makes you take a deep breath, like you said, and think about life in general. Because life can move fast, and there's certainly a lot comes with this profession. But to lose him that young, it's a tragedy. And one thing, I guess, I didn't know him as well as others, is it looked like, he enjoyed his time. He did. And it's like he did it his way, and there's a lot to be said for that. And college football is certainly going to miss Mike Leach.
It's Ryan Day there talking about Mike Leach, as he was definitely one of a kind, and college football will miss him. College football needed a coach like him. I think of even at SEC Media Days when he was, this past year giving off Netflix recommendations.
Right.
Like during his talk, did not give an opening statement because he said there's no reason for opening statements. Just, he was really one of a kind that you knew you were going to get a laugh. We've played audio on the show.
Oh, yeah.
From just this season
Right.
of him talking about his players losing their hands and losing generations of hands. Him talking about weddings after a game.
Right.
Like he just, he is one of a kind.
Yeah, he certainly was. And you just knew that you were getting somebody that not only, cared about football, obviously, he cared about his guys, and he wanted his guys to play well, but he just didn't take it as seriously, I think, as a lot of other people, as far as getting them better. Now, obviously, in certain games, certain situations, you knew he was on it and dialed in, and he knew his players' weaknesses and strengths. But you also knew that he would bring a levity to it, and he would bring a lightness to it that I think a lot of it escapes a lot of coaches in general, not just football, but just in general. And he just basically just shot it straight, like Ryan Day was saying, and just kind of told you exactly what he thought, and you always had to come to grips with that.
Yeah, and so it is it's a tough day across college football as Mike Leach passed away again at age 61, young there for him. Will Rogers, quarterback there at Mississippi State, sent out a tweet earlier today. He said, when I was in first grade, Graham threw the ball to Crabtree against Texas. Thank you for giving me a chance as a 17-year-old. From Wazoo to Mississippi State, I will never forget everything you taught me and the relationship we had. So, that he did some great recruiting. He brought in a great quarterback.
Yeah.
Will Rogers, really developed over his time under Mike Leach. And they will be playing in the bowl. The Mississippi State did say today they are for sure playing in the bowl. And there's going to be some, extra sentiment in that game for Mississippi State going out and playing for their head coach. As we mentioned yesterday, Zach Arnett, the defensive coordinator, will take over head coaching duties for the bowl game. And I think it's very appropriate, too, in Raymond James Stadium where they'll be playing is that pirate ship in the stadium. It fits.
Didn't think about that. But, yeah, well, what better tribute for the pirate to play at the pirate ship and play where the Buccaneers play. That's oddly ironic that all that came together where, the game that they'll honor him. Obviously, they'll have a lot of honoring and they'll play with heavy hearts, I know, but they'll also play with a certain gusto to get that win for their coach and for the guy that brought them brought a lot of pride in Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see more outpouring of support and what we hear from some of the others that were in and around him. You think about a guy like Auburn new AD John Cohen who hired him at Mississippi State. I'm sure a lot of people obviously right now will everybody's giving everybody the time to mourn it in their certain ways, especially the people that knew him up close. But to hear some of those stories on the back end, it'll be great for these next few days, and then watching the team honor him at Raymond James.
Oh yeah, and so we'll talk more as we honor the life of Mike Leach throughout the show today. We will jump to a break right now. Come back and talk some New England Patriots on the other side.
Watch out.
It is WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9. Chase and Gerhard here with you as we've been talking and honoring the life of Coach Mike Leach. Tough news in college football today. I want to get to some NFL talk, though. We'll look at power rankings later on in the show, but it was the Patriots last night defeating the Cardinals 27-13, and New England and Mac Jones able to go out and get the win on Monday night.
Yeah, it was a weird game yesterday because of all the injuries that took place. It started off third play of the football game. Kyler Murray, shout out to him because he, his knee buckled under him, and the reports that I'm hearing, the reports that I'm seeing right now is that the tests have confirmed that it is a torn ACL, a non-contact injury, and it just kind of rolled up under him, and so the Cardinals, who were already having a rough year, it got even worse with the injury news. But even still, the defense played phenomenally, and then Mac Jones in spurts with the offense were able to get some things going offensively for them and be able to get a much needed win. Patriots were 6-6 heading into this one. They couldn't really afford to go under 500 and still possibly have a shot at a wild card. They play in a really tough division where now all teams in the division are over 500, led by the Buffalo Bills. So they had to win this game, kind of a must-win situation for them. So to be able to go out there, get the win, Colt McCoy was the quarterback for the Cardinals. Had a pretty decent day overall, but Mac Jones, 24 of 35. We saw some frustrations last week. Seems like a lot of those have dissipated. 235 yards. He did have an interception, but they really had to rely on a lot of rookies, some young guys. Pierre Strong, a rookie running back, as well as Kevin Harris, a rookie running back out of LSU. And a rookie on the defensive side who plays a little bit of offense, Marcus Jones, who actually went to Enterprise High School, played a little bit at Troy before going over to Houston. So he's got some Alabama roots to him. And he's played defense, special teams, and a little bit of offense as well throughout the course of the season. So they had to rely on a lot of young guys, a lot of rookies to be able to get the job done. But they were able to do so and get a very, very much needed win.
Mac Jones spoke after the game about that win.
Yeah, certainly did, because of the frustrations that happened the week before and the importance of this one. He knew just how big this one was to be able to get the win out there. They're staying out on the West Coast because they have the Raiders coming up next. So to be able to get that trip off to a good start, he says was really good.
I think the fans showed up today really well. Patriot fans were here and were loud, and I think it actually really helped us to bring up the energy, and it's always good when the fans can have our back on a road game. So really good to see that, and we came here to win, and that was the important part. The defense obviously scored a touchdown for us, which was huge to kind of give us that lead there, and we want to score more points. So we'll watch the tape and see what we can do better as always, and biggest thing is get the win, right? That's all we came here for, and it was a little bit of a hectic, injury game for us, but can't control those things, and obviously, Mondre went down. He's one of our best players. So those guys stepped up, and obviously with Damian out, they had to step up. And the thing I told him was, for Kevin, it's just like SEC football. So go out there and do your thing. And you've played against really good teams, and that's what it is. And Pierre is the same thing. A young guy, but he's really fast, uses his speed well. So they did a great job, and they're going to have to step up again, and Marcus and everybody. So the rookies definitely did a great job, and super proud of them. And they just want to help the team win, so that's what we're trying to do.
Mac Jones there following the win. You mentioned Marcus Jones a second ago from the state of Alabama, and had a chance to hear him after that win last night as well.
Yeah, he's also one of the guys that's being called upon to make a lot of big plays early in his career. He's still a rookie, and Mac Jones alluded to him late there in that audio clip we just played. But he's another one of these rookies that starts, but he actually starts and plays a little bit on each side of the football. So it's a really unique situation. A guy from Enterprise High School, also played at Troy, and talks a little bit about being able to get the win and some of the things he's learning in his rookie season.
Coach basically just told us that we need to lock in and do what we practice. That's the main thing. First half wasn't how we wanted it to be, but we just had to play our game and just basically do that. In this game, defense wins championships, so that's the main thing, just locking in and doing what we're supposed to do and everything. And whenever we are putting it all together in all three phases, we're definitely a hard team to beat. Just coming in and day out, making sure I know what to do. And the main thing, like I said before, is however I can help the team, I'm definitely down for it.
That was Marcus Jones with the Patriots. as they get the 27-13 win over the Cardinals. Like you said, they've got Las Vegas up next, so they're going to hang out there on the West Coast and try to get another win next against the Raiders. We'll get to more talk, NFL talk later on. We'll look at the power rankings, what's next for some of these teams across the National Football League as the playoff picture kind of taking shape now as far as the NFC and the AFC. But coming up next, we will talk with Joshua Kraft from the city of Oxford. We'll see what's going on down at Chocolaca Park and across the city of Oxford. We will do that next here on this Tuesday afternoon.
The Press Box. This is where the biggest names in the sports world tell it like it is.
Fox Sports 102.9.
It is WKXX Live, Fox Sports 102.9, 2:30 on this Tuesday afternoon. Chase Robinson, Gerhard, Mathangani here with you. And joining us in studio today, got Joshua Kraft from the city of Oxford joining us. Josh, always great to have you on.
Good afternoon, Chase. It's always good to be here and hang out with a couple of guys that I think that they know what they're talking about most of the time. So
we at least fake it.
Well, a lot going on down in Oxford. As always, there at Chakalaka Park is just over the years we've seen it grow. More events come in there, and I think a lot of folks, even in this part of the state, got to experience it more with the Alabama High School Athletic Association having the baseball and softball championships there. And good news for you guys, just signing that 5-year deal with the AHSAA. That's exciting to have the state championship there.
Yeah, that's big. And we have a great partnership with the AHSAA, and we're always happy to be able to work with them. And even Jacksonville State, like we're doing for baseball. It's just kind of like everything just fell in place last year for baseball. And we ended up getting it for 5 years, us and JSU.
Yeah.
And then softball, we are a premier sports complex, not to sound braggedy, but, well, heck, I guess I can brag. I mean, we are one of the nicest complexes in the Southeast, maybe even in the nation. And I'm glad that we're able to continue to host quality events and even some interesting events like disc golf. We're doing stuff with mountain biking or like trail biking and all that now. And we have a bunch of 5Ks going on. We're even trying to figure out if we can do boat racing.
Wow.
The little RC boats on the lake. So there's always things to do at the park.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the vision, I would think, whenever this was being brought up, whenever Chakalaka Park was first being thought about, was hosting these events. This being an event kind of place, obviously for the citizens being one thing, but this has to be just the kind of the icing on the cake, whether it's the OVC championships, which I've covered a lot of games there, covered a lot of prospect camps there for baseball and for softball, and then now to get this. I mean, it feels like everything that this was established for is playing out into fruition.
And I really don't know if any of us expected it to grow this big, this fast. Because, I mean, we have 4 or 5 different college softball, baseball championship tournaments. We have national championship tournaments. Of course, like last year, we had the World Game. Well, we had an offset of the World Games. We had teams from 4 different countries playing. And, and we've actually had, just over the course of the years, with everything that we've had with softball, track and field, soccer, and everything else, I mean, just based off of the things that we know and the things that we can kind of quantify, we've had people from over 100 countries at Chakalaka Park at some time to play or even just to visit. So I guess we're doing all right. I mean, we're moving right along. And, of course, even next year, we got a bunch of stuff happening that I can't really tell you yet. But we're just working on a whole bunch of stuff in terms of capital improvements and trying to get some more events.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up some of the stuff that went on this summer, but you mentioned the World Games exhibition games that you guys had, and featuring Team USA and obviously Japan in there as well. But a lot of folks came to watch those games. I know the softball field was full of bodies that night. Just to get their eyes on those 2 teams, and y'all were able to have that right there at Chakalaka Park.
And that was a credit to what we had to do to get it within about 5 or 6 weeks with the construction, getting new bleachers, and that's a credit to our director and the mayor and some of their friends, like Steve Hale from Hale Building and all of them that really came through and were getting those bleachers up, getting the concrete poured, getting the fences back and everything. And they were able to do that, working every day for 5 or 6 straight weeks. But we were able to get it done. And now, because of that stuff, though, we're able to host other things besides like high school softball.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about college, even maybe some professional softball that may be coming soon, we hope. But, Just okay, so the World Games, they had like limited access to the athletes at the games in Birmingham, and that's policy rules and stuff like that. But it was great to see because we were there till, I think the last game was over about 9 or so, and we were there till 11:30 at night because the fans were lined up to meet the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and get autographs and photos, and they were loving it, and there were all these rules with, well, we can't let them be this close and all that, and the softball players are going over there and just getting into it, and they're taking pictures with them, so that all went to pot, but that's okay because everybody was having fun and it was great, and we actually got a lot of compliments from the players and the coaches from all the countries that were there about how nice our field was and how well we treated them. So
and there's a lot of emphasis in softball here. You think about the great programs that are just right here, the great complexes that are here. Obviously, I think state of the art complex is the one that you guys have, and you also have one over in the Albertville area. But then softball right now is just big in the state of Alabama. Of course, Alabama softball has been huge for forever. Jacksonville State softball has been great, but also it's trickling down now to where we're seeing top athletes on the high school level as well sign within colleges here in the state as well as elsewhere. So not only is softball being embraced by the city of Oxford, but you have good quality softball as well. Speaking specifically softball, I know baseball as well, but specifically to softball, it's kind of the softball world wanted, hey, we need a facility to host our championships. They were kind of, I think a lot of softball fans were a little disappointed with what they had from before. No judgment to Montgomery. It served its purpose, but I think moving it to Oxford was the best deal. I think it was like 2 years ago. They had to do it out of necessity, and then it was like, oh, hey, let's move it here permanently.
Yeah, and I love softball. I think softball is a fast-growing sport in terms of just fans because, and this is not to take anything from a baseball, and I actually, to get a plug in, I actually call softball, and to our young people who are in college, we need umpires.
Yeah.
So if y'all contact somebody, call the AHSA and see who our district president is because we need them bad, and that's in all sports. But softball to me is just a different style than baseball because it's quicker. Your game's going to last an hour and a half, and the girls, I mean, you got, and this is what Dad was saying last year. He saw a girl who she gave up like 6 runs or 7 runs in the first inning of the game, and she's watching them. And if you see that in baseball, they're going to yank that pitcher. And you see it in softball, and the girls are over there beating on buckets for her, cheering her, and she's over there smiling, just kind of dancing along with them as she's getting back into the pitcher circle.
Yeah.
And the game ended up being like 8-6 or something. But I mean, just softball to me is more. It's just more friendly and more fan friendly, where you can actually interact with them. Your home runs hit, everybody's going to come out and cheer, and I mean, it's just great. And heck, I saw the girl Breezy from Phoenix College in Arizona, who was the MVP for the NJCAA World Series last year. She hit a ball that went over to track and field.
Wow.
So, the stadium was rocking. There was about 1,000 people in there, and the stadium was rocking after that one.
Yeah.
So I was up on the PA doing that, but it was just real fun.
We're talking with Joshua Kraft, the city of Oxford, and at Choccolocco Park. And, of course, the Choccolocco Monsters, you completed year 1 of that this summer, the June and July Collegiate Woodbat Baseball League. And I know that brought a lot of fans into the park as well.
Yeah, that was a very successful thing that we've done, and we hope to continue to work with them. We had the All-Star game there this year, and I don't think our team was the best team in the league, but they had fun, and there was a bunch of people out there watching the games on Friday and Saturday nights, and even a couple of Wednesday or Tuesday nights, I think. But and that's out there in the middle of July in Alabama when you got people out there that are watching games. But it was interesting, and we're hoping, we have a great working relationship with the Monsters and their staff, and the coaches, and we're hoping to continue that over the next couple of years, and especially as we add on to some things, hopefully make some capital improvements at the signature fields. So we're rolling though. I mean, even like our track and field, which I'm over the track and field, we're growing on that. You know, we're starting to make some more capital things happen there, and we're starting to hopefully get some more tournaments and some championship stuff going on there. So soccer, same thing. We're doing some stuff at soccer, and lacrosse is where we played at the soccer fields, and we're doing stuff with that. We're having camps and stuff. So anything that you want to play, and if y'all have a sport that we're not sure about, that we don't know about, bring it to us. We probably have a place for it.
Right. Is that how disc golf got started?
Yeah, you know, we had a couple of folks that were asking about the disc golf course, and it would be a great place for a disc golf course. And finally, Dad and Don just, you know, met and said, yeah, well, let's build them a disc golf course. So it's actually it's either one of the only or the only 18-hole disc golf course in the area. So, and I see them out there. Look, rain, snow, 115 or 35 degrees. I have seen disc golfers out there throwing their disc or frisbee or whatever they call it into the little golf hole. So I tried to do it, and I'm a lot better golfer in real life than I am a disc golfer. And that's not saying much because I'm not that good at that either. But
and it is. I've played this golf course there at Chocolate. It's a good course, and so that's great that y'all have that as well. Festival of Lights going on right now through the Christmas season, through Christmas Eve. So folks can go check that out at the park right now as well. Yeah,
it closes on Christmas Eve, and it's open till 10 o'clock every night, and we open at 5. We're doing well. Make sure, guys, especially because I know we got weather coming in this week too, make sure that y'all are paying attention to our social media pages, which especially that's going to be the City of Oxford and Choccolocco Park's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, because that's going to be the best way to figure out if Santa's Village is closed or not, because it was closed, I think, Friday or Saturday whenever we had the rain. But, you know, it's a very family-friendly thing that we do. We have vendors there that sell kettle corn and hot chocolate and coffee, and even I think we have bratwurst and stuff there too. Yeah. And, of course, cider. And then we have, you can go visit Santa. You can write letters to Santa. We have a movie showing, which I think, Elf, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the old clay style, and we have jumps too. We have the inflatable slides and the mazes and stuff. So,
and it's a good deal too. Last I heard, I remember the deal being, obviously you get a kind of a package deal, but it's everything to get you ready for the holiday season.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and we have gifts there that you can buy, just little stocking stuffers, if you will. That if you just, and even if you're searching for a last minute gift, there's T-shirts, sweaters, stuff like that you can go by there and get. We even have souvenir mugs that you can get. I know that all of you teenage sons who have not gotten your mother a gift, she loves coffee mugs, and she loves them little tumbler things. Yeah. So go out to the park and get one for her.
Great idea there.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Great idea.
Good stocking stuffer, good present, everything.
Joshua Kraft, appreciate you coming in and letting us know what all is going on there at Choccolocco Park in Oxford. Again, where can folks, if they may want to see a calendar of events, keep up with things, how can they do that?
Go to choccoloccopark.com, go to oxfordal.gov, and you can search for the link, or look for us on Facebook, Choccolocco Park, City of Oxford, and you can find links there too.
All right, good stuff, Joshua. Appreciate you coming in.
No problem. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
We will jump to a break here. We'll be back with more WKXX Live in a moment.
Northeast Alabama's favorite holiday
It is WKXX Live here on Fox Sports 102.9. Chase and Gerhard here with you. Our phone number 256-413-1029. That is 256-413-1029. If you'd like to call in and be a part of the show today, as we talked a little bit yesterday about the Alabama Crimson Tide. They got the win over Houston, and they turned their attention to Memphis tonight. Part of their tough little stretch of basketball games. Memphis handing Auburn their first loss on Saturday. This is one of those games that you can see being a trap game when it comes to the Crimson Tide.
Most definitely, because you take a team like Memphis, even though Memphis right now comes in with a really strong record, 8-2 overall. It's another national television game, late tip-off. I got the 8 o'clock tip-off, but this is one of those games to where you can't look ahead to Gonzaga. I know the whole world will be waiting for that Gonzaga game, but Memphis is a really good basketball team, and I think that beating Auburn really kind of solidified it, maybe to the Alabama players that, we got to be able to play our best right now because of the kind of game that they could put together with Memphis coming in. Penny Hardaway's done a really good job with that basketball team, with that basketball program just in general, perennial powers out of the American, and Alabama should know just how good the American is because they just knocked off Houston, and Houston is probably the premier program there in the American Conference, and Memphis is right there and right next to them. Bruce Pearl even talked about that Memphis and Houston right now are kind of 1-2 as far as the way that conference is structured and trying to get that top spot. So it'll be a really tough test here for Alabama as they play again. At least this one's at home. Most of their big victories so far this season has either been at a neutral site or a true road game like it was against Houston. But this one being on the road, it will be a tough challenge here for the Crimson Tide.
It will be, and I'm interested to see how Brandon Miller plays. A guy who we haven't seen him at his best the last couple of games. I'm interested to see if Clowney can keep up what he's done. We talked yesterday with Roger Hoover. Clowney's been the more consistent guy. We didn't expect that, but he has been the more consistent guy.
Yeah, 6'10". He gives you all of the things that you want from an effort standpoint, and that's exactly what you want to see and hear out of one of your young players. We talked about yesterday Monday Night Football, all the rookies that really showed up, the guys that who aren't used to playing, that get immediately tasked to be able to provide a key role for the basketball team. Brandon Miller really stepped up at the beginning, but it's been hugely the rookies that have been doing it since then, or Clowney to be more specific. But a lot of the young guys have really stepped up, and they've really needed to in this kind of role because of the talent they've played so far. But it's added to their depth. And so the one kind of good thing about Brandon Miller not playing to maybe his capabilities or what he's been playing to at the beginning of the season is it's allowing other guys to step up. And they're still learning lessons through wins instead of learning lessons through losses. You don't want to learn lessons through losses, even though most people do. And that's one of the things that Coach Nate Oates always kind of just talks about. Like, you obviously want to win and be able to learn lessons through wins, but sometimes it's easier to learn lessons through losses. And Coach Saban talks about that a lot too. But this is a basketball team that I think is so far. Taking their only loss so far this season here today, and they've been undefeated since then. And they have another chance today against an upset-minded Memphis team that they play here tonight.
We'll talk SEC basketball coming up at 3:15. Blake Lovell with Southeastern14.com will join us and talk SEC basketball. Interested to hear his thoughts on the Crimson Tide. Coming up in just a few minutes at 3 o'clock, Corey McCartney from BatteryPower.com will join us. We'll talk some Braves baseball, get his thoughts on the trade that went down yesterday afternoon. So all that coming up in hour number 2. Jacksonville State basketball returns to the air tomorrow. Tomorrow night, 6:30 is tip-off between Jacksonville State and Reinhardt there at Pete Matthews Coliseum. You can go support the Gamecocks as they're back at home. But if you can't make it out, you could listen right here on Fox Sports 102.9 to Jacksonville State men's basketball here on WKXX. We've got a lot to get to coming up in hour 2. Like I said, Corey McCartney joins us. Blake Lovell will join us. We'll talk more Alabama, Memphis. We'll look at the NFL power rankings as well as we finished up another week in the NFL. All that is coming up in hour number 2. I will take your phone calls as well, so keep it locked in right here on Fox Sports 102.9. Hour number 2 next. Stick around.
The Press Box.
Sports Talk Radio. Get ready for Chase Robinson.
He has got to be a player they can rely on in big situations.
And Gerhard Mathangani.
Has the trust of his team. Sounds like the makeup of his team is in a really good space, and I believe that's because of the culture he's curated down there.
For WKXX Live, these guys have you covered from preps to pros and everything in between. Now, let's go inside the Fox Sports 102.9 studio with Chase and Gerhard for WKXX Live.
Hour number 2 as we get rolling here on this Tuesday afternoon. Chase Robinson and Gerhard Mathangani with you. Glad you are along with us today as we've talked a lot of college football today. And we do want to talk some Braves baseball now. As we told you yesterday afternoon, the big trade that is bringing Sean Murphy, catcher, to the Braves. To talk with us now, we welcome on Corey McCartney, BatteryPower.com, as well as 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Corey, as always, we appreciate your time. How are you today?
Hey, great. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
And big trade yesterday. The Braves have acquired catcher Sean Murphy. What will he bring to the Braves organization?
As Alex Anthopoulos told us after the trade, he brings premium defense to a premium defensive position. And I think when you consider the changes, the rule changes, in terms of, how much I think guys are going to be running now, on the base pass with the limits on pickoffs, how much you are going to need exceptional defensive play at the catcher position. That's what they ultimately saw in Sean Murphy and felt like they were willing to give up quite a bit to get obviously they were good at catcher before, but to get even better than they were a year ago with Travis d'Arnaud and William Contreras.
No doubt. For the Braves, just in general, obviously competing in a really tough division, what do you make of the entire race here between the teams that compete in the NL East and just the jockeying for position? We saw that in the regular season, we saw it in the postseason, and then now we're seeing it in the playoff in the hot stove league, I guess you could call it as well. What have you made of this past off season and the moves that everybody's made?
Yeah, it's been a busy place, right? I mean, obviously we're still waiting to see what the Braves are going to end up doing at shortstop. But you consider what's happened already in terms of the moves within the division. I mean, obviously the Phillies go out and get Trey Turner, and then you've got the Mets just in their seemingly bottomless pockets of owner Steve Cohen. They just keep adding on and on and on, and they've got a pitching staff that swaps out Jacob deGrom for Justin Verlander. They go and get Kota Senga from Japan to come over as well, and I mean, they just again, I don't know how in the world they just keep coming up with this money, but it can set a potential all-time record here with a single season payroll for them. So it's going to be a cutthroat division without question. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Braves are still the team that's been sitting on top for 5 straight years, and everyone's trying to chase them down.
What do you think the next move with the Braves will be? Will it be that shortstop position?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be. And when we talked to Anthopoulos yesterday after the Murphy deal, he was asked about an update on shortstop, and he said they're not willing at this point to go out and say who their starting shortstop's going to be. There's certainly guys out there still that they have interest in, namely Dansby Swanson. So we'll see if they're able to bring him back. But he did say that they've had Vaughn Grissom go out to New Orleans and work with Ron Washington. He said that Washington raved about Grissom's work the last time out there, and he said he's not often, one to hear Ron Washington raving about a player. So I would be stunned if that's who's going to be their starting shortstop. Between him and Orlando Arcia are the guys that they have in-house. But certainly everyone's waiting to see where Dansby Swanson's going to end up. I think the shortstop market has changed a little bit, the parameters of what it was going to take to get Dansby. These deals have been a lot longer in length than anyone I think anticipated. So we'll see what that ultimately means. If the market itself may be determining the fact that Dansby's not going to be a Brave more so than the Braves not wanting Dansby Swanson back.
Right, and that part to me has always been interesting. In you have to kind of read the smoke around the negotiations because you don't really get clear sides on either way. Do you believe that there is maybe a kind of perfect deal in place that the Braves will agree to and that Dansby Swanson will agree to, or do you believe just from what we've seen both sides are too far apart?
So my understanding is that Dansby wants at least 6 years, and that's kind of been the hang up from the Braves end of it. So he during the season had offered the Braves 6 years at $140 million, which is exactly what the Tigers gave Javier Baez, exactly what the Red Sox gave Trevor Story. So it felt like market value when we were trying to consider what a deal for Swanson would look like. That felt like ultimately what would get it done. But I think the length of the deal, when you consider Dansby's age, I don't think the Braves want to go that far. And then I think you also kind of get into this sticky situation where, you've got the deals for, Matt Olson and Austin Riley, around 21.2 million on an average annual value. The Braves have never paid more than $22 million in a multi-year contract for a player. I don't know that they're really willing to go that for Dansby Swanson, who has been, a big piece of the winning there. But he's had one 162-game season in which he has hit above league average, one season. And I don't know that you're willing to pay $23 million or $24 million a year for a guy that, has been a key to everything, but has not had that long-term offensive track record of above league average performance.
We're talking with Corey McCartney, BatteryPower.com, covers the Braves, and also 92.9 The Game there in Atlanta. What do you think the Braves are going to do, and will they do anything as far as pitchers here in the offseason, getting ready for next season?
I don't see them doing anything. I know there was some rumors that have been circulating, at least one rumor circulating today about, would they potentially move Max Fried? I don't know that Max Fried's ever going to have a higher value than he does now. You got to think about it, though. If you're going to end up trying to lock him up long term, it's going to be costly. So, he has more value now, with more years of control than if you wait a year and then he's, on the doorsteps of free agency. But I don't see them making any maneuvers pitching-wise. I just think they have so much in-house already, and then they have so many guys vying for that fifth spot. And they just moved on from Freddie Tarnock and Kyle Muller, a couple of guys who could have been options, but you still got Mike Soroka, Ian Anderson, Bryce Elder, Jared Schuster, who's now their new number one overall prospect. So I don't think that they need to go out and do anything to add to the mix because I think they have so many options. But certainly I've been stunned by what Anthopoulos has done these past couple of years, and especially at catcher, a spot that you looked at and thought, oh, they don't need to go out and do anything, and now they go out and potentially make the biggest maneuver of the offseason here and getting even better at the catcher spot.
No doubt. I know on the website you guys have done a great job really all year long, but I love the end of the year stuff where you're able to kind of really chew on and break down different players and kind of review their years overall. Who were you most impressed by a season ago, and maybe who are some of the players that you're looking forward to having a big season, new or otherwise, in 2023?
Yeah, I thought Austin Riley was fantastic this past year, and I think you look at the growth of him, over the years. I think that's been the biggest piece of it for me, is because when he popped up, it was like, oh, this is a guy that's just going to, hit 50, 60 home runs. That's all this guy's going to do. And then the well dried, and then you saw him try to adjust to the league's adjustments. I think this past year we saw a much more complete player. And talking to Mark DeRosa about him, he said, he didn't even think we've even scratched the surface on how good Austin Riley could be, which I think a lot of Braves fans should be really happy to hear that. But I'm this next year, I think it's a lot of what happens for the Braves is going to revolve around Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr., two guys who, did not have, they had, let's face it, they had completely forgettable seasons. Albies, just could not stay healthy. When he did get back, he immediately got hurt. And then Ronald Acuna Jr. just trying to fight his way back in recovering from that knee injury. So I think if those two, think about it, they won a division and we're back in the postseason with those guys not performing at their best. So I think you've got the potential for this team to be even better if those two can live up to the back of their baseball cards.
Here's Corey McCartney, BatteryPower.com, also 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Corey, as always, really appreciate you hopping on with us, talking some Braves baseball. We will do it again very soon, but appreciate your time today.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Corey McCartney, always good stuff there. As Braves, we'll see what they can do this offseason, see what happens there at that shortstop position. All eyes are going to be on that in the next month or so,
right?
And you got to imagine they'll make something done in plenty of time for spring training.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do find it interesting that it does seem that the Braves and what Dansby Swanson are are rooting for as far as negotiations goes are pretty far off, because that was really good intel, because you don't get a lot of details about negotiations.
Yeah.
But right there, Corey gave some really good hard facts about just where Dansby wants to be. He wants to be at market value. I understand that completely, but he's at 6 years, and the kind of the glaring stat to me was that one season he's hit over league average as far as bat goes. I know his glove is phenomenal, but his bat, I don't think justifies 6 years. He's a fan favorite. The fans will want him, and the fans aren't doing the nuanced stuff that Anthopoulos in the front office is doing. So it doesn't look to me that he will be a Brave next year, and especially on the back end where Ron Washington right now is working with Von Grissom, and Von Grissom I know has played a little shortstop before, and apparently if he looks Major League Baseball ready, then why pay $20+ million to Dansby Swanson? Braves fans probably don't want to hear that, but it sounds like from the reporting, that's what we're heading to.
Yep, and so interesting stuff there. Appreciate Corey McCartney for shedding some light of what's going on there with the Braves. We're going to talk SEC basketball next. Blake Lovell with Southeastern14.com joins us.
Hi, I'm Dr.
We continue on this Tuesday afternoon. It is Fox Sports 102.9 WKXX Live. Chase and Gerhard here with you. As we're going to talk some SEC basketball now as we welcome on Blake Lovell, Southeastern14.com. Blake, always appreciate your time. How you doing today?
Yeah, doing well, man. How are you?
Doing good. And I know as far as SEC basketball, all the talk right now about the Alabama Crimson Tide. They took down their second number one team this past Saturday. They got Memphis tonight. But just as you've watched Alabama play this year, what stands out to you about the Tide?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly, I think before the season, I probably made a comment about I thought Kentucky was maybe the deepest team in the SEC, but then I said, I think Alabama's probably right there with them, and I think that's kind of been how it played out. I think Alabama's kind of proven they have the most depth of anybody in the league, and we've seen that kind of play out in some of these big games. Just it seems like there's different guys that are able to step up in big spots, and I think to win a game in Houston the way they did with no field goals from Brandon Miller just kind of speaks to that depth. Just there's always somebody that seemingly they can step up and give them what they need, and so I think that's been the most impressive thing. Is just this is still a pretty young team, and you consider how many underclassmen they're relying on, and yet they've still been able to go out and, beat a lot of good teams in Houston and Carolina, Michigan State, and teams like that. So, yeah, a lot of good for this team thus far.
For sure. Given the inconsistencies of what we saw a year ago, now seeing Alabama where they are, do you believe that this team has maybe turned something, whether it's physically or mentally, to be able to sustain this, or do you maybe expect another roller coaster year as we dip into SEC play?
Well, I think the difference is they're playing defense this year. I think that's kind of the biggest difference is that last year there was no consistency because I just don't think there was any consistency defensively and really shooting the ball. There was not a lot of that. Now, this is not, I think this is still a team that will miss some threes every now and then just because they're going to take quite a few. But I just think the difference is that this team at least is playing defense on a more consistent basis, and I think that's been the difference is, it seems like, again, when you kind of look at the depth they have, there are a lot of guys that are, maybe not even having to score, but they're being the guys that kind of drive things defensively, whether that's an Amari Burnett and all those different guys. So I think, sure, is it possible they could lose the next two games just because of the level of competition they're playing? Absolutely, with Memphis and Gonzaga, but I don't expect the same type of roller coaster ride just because I think the very glaring difference to me is that this team just playing better defense.
We're talking with Blake Lovell, Southeastern 14, covering SEC basketball. Mississippi State is the only undefeated team left in the SEC. What do you make of the Bulldogs?
Well, I think that's the same thing. Is they've been the most surprising team thus far, but I mean, really, I think Tennessee and Mississippi State are probably, you could even make the argument they're the two best defensive teams in the country, just in terms of how they're playing. I mean, for Mississippi State, they're having a lot more than 55 points in a game this season. They played 9 games, and they haven't played a terrible schedule. They played teams like Marquette and Utah, and Minnesota's not a great team by any means, but still going on the road, holding them to 51 points. Akron's not a bad team. So, I mean, Mississippi State, I think, is legit. We'll see how their offense holds up. When they start playing teams like Alabama and Tennessee, which, what do you know, that happens to be their first, 2 SEC games is against Alabama in the Vols. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, I think they're absolutely deserving of all the praise they're getting right now because they are just completely bought in on the defensive side of the floor. And look, they may still have some games where they struggle to score, but you know what? When you defend the way they do, they find a way, even if it's a low-scoring game. So I would definitely be buying on the Bulldogs right now.
For sure. Speaking of low-scoring games, we've seen Auburn put up 43 in a win. They lost their first game on Saturday against Memphis. What do you make of the Tigers early on so far this season? A unique situation, losing as much talent as they lost off of last year's basketball team. What do you make of Bruce Pearl's bunch through 9 games?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I feel like they played 9 games, but I still don't have a great feel about Auburn. I think there were some people I said that even when they're winning all their games, like when they're winning, I'm like, yeah, I know, but I still don't have a great feel kind of for what this team is going to be long term because I do think offensively anybody that just expected them just to, be what they were last year, just by adding a couple different players into the mix, or being able to replicate some of the things that, Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler could do, not just offensively but defensively too. That was going to be a tall task. This is still a really good defensive team, and that's going to give them a chance to win some games. But I do think there's going to be times where, I think it's the obvious point. They're not a great shooting team, and they're going to get in some of these games where teams are going to force them to shoot a lot of jump shots and maybe defend well enough to keep them out of the paint. And when they do that, they're going to have to knock down some shots. At this point, they're shooting 28.5% from three. And that's just probably something that I think, again, they've got a deep guard group. I think Bruce Pearl is pretty confident what his team can do, but I think a lot of that's got to come in terms of their defense making their offense easier, because I still just think that they're looking for kind of that, they're looking for that one guy that in every single possession offensively, if they need it in a close game down the stretch, I think you've got options for who that guy could be, but who is that guy right now? And again, you could pick a couple of different guys, but I think just having that one guy that at any time can knock down a three, or really just, get you 6 points in a minute, I think that's kind of some of the challenges maybe you see with this team right now. Again, not a great shooting team, not a great free throw shooting team. I think when you add some of those things together, that can put some pressure on their defense at times too.
Just from your perspective, as we get ready to wrap up non-conference, head into conference play, who would you say are the top 3, 4, maybe 5 teams in the SEC as we get conference play started?
Yeah, I think Alabama's the clear number one. I mean, I don't know how you can put anyone else there based on the fact that Alabama's beaten 2 number 1 teams. They beat Michigan State, and their only loss is to what I think should be the number 1 team, and that's UConn. I would put them ahead of Purdue right now. Just in all honesty, I think with the way UConn's been playing, they're pretty terrific. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, I think Alabama's got to be 1. I think you could debate Tennessee and Arkansas 2 and 3 in whatever order. Look, Tennessee's, my goodness, there's a tale of 2 halves against Maryland, where Tennessee, again, so good defensively that they are just fantastic on that side of the floor, but they're still going to have those stretches where they can't score. And I think that could be something that catches up with them maybe as soon as Saturday when they go to Arizona. But, still, Tennessee's a Final Four caliber team just based on how they play defense. Arkansas, big loss for, Trevon Brazile, just a terrific player, could have been a first-team All-SEC guy. But without him, is their ceiling a little bit lower? Maybe. But the fact that they've got Nick Smith, Anthony Black, that duo, and Ricky Council, that can lead them a really long way. So I think Arkansas is still there. And then I think you got Mississippi State and Kentucky. And I know people may be surprised that Kentucky's, 4 or 5 in the SEC. But when you look at just what people have done to this point, I mean, I think Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, and you could even maybe say Mississippi State have all been more impressive than Kentucky. But I think Kentucky still has a very high upside of perhaps winning it all if they can put it all together. But I think that's your top 5 right now.
No doubt. Non-conference, at least to me, this year has been really interesting. We get a lot of good matchups. Do you like what college basketball has done? Where I know the committee, at the end of every year, we always have complaints about who's in the top 64 and whatnot, and then the committee made a really big emphasis about scheduling and what we've seen here in the non-conference. Do you like what we've seen so far with a lot of marquee matchups with a lot of blue bloods?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing like Alabama's a great example. Look, it's very clear now that if you want to be in a position where, hey, maybe you lose a few games and you have a few more losses and, you're comparing teams and all that at the end of the year, well, as long as you played a tough schedule, you're going to give yourself still a really good chance in terms of seeding and where you're at. And I think Alabama, again, is usually always a good example of that. And, whether it's, not just SEC teams, but other teams around the country that are scheduling better. I mean, here's an example, guys. I mean, Memphis, obviously comes in there tonight, but look at the way Memphis has done in their non-conference schedule. They're basically playing the SEC at this point. I mean, they played Vanderbilt, they played Ole Miss, Auburn, they're going to play Alabama, they got A&M on Saturday. They're really trying to load up, and I think that's very important, for a team like Memphis in the AAC, that conference is one where, hey, they need some quality wins, because once you get to conference play, you don't know how many are going to be there. And so I think when you look at teams like that, all around the country, having more of these big marquee type matchups, it only benefits everyone when you're doing that. And I know there's still going to be people say, yeah, well, when you do it, it doesn't give some of these mid-major teams a chance, to get in there and have some of those games. And I get it, but if you're from an SEC school and you're trying to coach your team and give them the best chance to have a resume, you're worried about yourself. You're not worried about everybody else. And I think also that's why it can be a little bit frustrating. Let's say you're a Texas A&M fan right now. Think about them getting left out last season. You look at their non-conference schedule this year, and, well, it's not that much better. So I think those are the kind of things you look at, and we've really kind of gotten to the point where it's very clear. Like, you have to schedule strong. If you do that, and you win some games, maybe you lose some games, you're still going to have a chance just based on, the strength of your schedule.
Here's Blake Lovell, Southeastern14.com. Also, their YouTube channel there. Search for Southeastern 14. Blake, really appreciate you hopping on with us, talking some SEC basketball. We will do it again very soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate Blake Lovell hopping on with us, talking some SEC hoops. As Alabama-Memphis, we'll talk more about that when that one comes your way tonight. We'll jump to a break, come back. We got lots to get to in our final 30 minutes of the show next.
Fox Sports 102.9 is Alabama's sports giant. 102.9.
I mean, I completely hate candy corn. When I was a kid, well, gummy bears, let's see. Gummy bears for sure.
Sour or regular?
The Haribo. It's got to be the Haribo ones. And then the other thing I like is when they used to have the sprees in a box. Outstanding. You have to go to the dollar store to find it, but I do. And then the latest, you know, there's still candy innovation, although a while back I found that Europe had better candy than we did overall. It's because they have gummy everything. You know, they have those Nerds clusters, which is new.
With the gummy.
Yeah, which is good. The Nerds clusters is good. And then if you go chocolate, probably Almond Joy.
Love it. Hopefully you'll get some of that next week.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Classic moment there from Mike Leach as we mourn the death of the coach at age 61. We've talked about it throughout the show, but just a classic moment. There's so many. It's hard to choose, but just a classic moment there of his Halloween candy. No candy corn.
No candy corn. He made it really clear. He's not a fan of candy corn. He is very much a favorite of gummy bears, and that's the reason why Europe over the United States, because they got gummy everything over there. He was just a national treasure. And the thing is that you always felt like you were getting the most authentic version of himself.
Yeah.
I think another funny thing about being funny, especially in our culture, is that we can smell inauthenticity. He was always authentic, which made it even more hilarious because he's just talking off the top of his head and just kind of riffing. And, you know, you got what you got. And so I'm sure every sideline reporter, they, you know, after doing his games, in the back of their head, they're thinking, if they win, I have 2 serious football questions and then some off the wall question because I know he's going to give me just some gold. And and he usually always provided.
Yes, and he's one of those guys that he wasn't just going to give you a basic answer. He was going to elaborate.
Yeah.
And as you heard right there, and so he will definitely be missed. We'll spend some more time talking about Mike Leach tomorrow. Jake Wimberly of ESPN 105.9 The Zone out of Mississippi is going to join us. I was talking with Jake throughout the day today. He has been very busy, a friend of Mike Leach, and he is going to join us tomorrow on the show just to talk about kind of the legacy he's leaving in Mississippi and across college football. But definitely a sad day. But you look back at these memories, these stories, so many stories involving Coach Leach.
Yeah, and there's another one. It's a great one, and you can find it on YouTube or anywhere where video platforms are about where he left a fake play sheet and a fake script in the Red River rivalry game, and he just left it over there on the Texas sideline just to see if they would use it, and apparently they did to try to see if they can get an edge. But the whole thing was a ruse, and it's Mike Leach, you know, just doing Mike Leach things, and so it's those kind of stories that I feel it will all bubble to the surface. And we do this when people pass away, and I like it. But what I feel about this is that I feel like people would be saying this no matter what. Just if it was his birthday or just something that we were celebrating about him, these things would come up because he's so eccentric. And but you know, now that it's past, you're taking it all in. And so you're hearing it from a lot of different places. And so from coaches meetings, from players, I kind of want to hear it all. And I think we'll get it all definitely over the course of the next 48 hours. And then, of course, as we get closer to that bowl game that Mississippi State is going to play to honor him.
Yeah, and they're already outside of Davis Wade Stadium today. Folks are leaving just tributes to Mike Leach outside the stadium. They have a pirate flag at half mast outside the stadium today, and to honor to Mike Leach and you know, even just in 3 years, he's been able to accomplish a lot at Mississippi State, and I'm so glad his last game was a win in the Egg Bowl. I mean, that's their rivalry game, and the last game he got to coach ended in a classic win for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, obviously in a highly anticipated game because going into it, Ole Miss had won 3 in a row. Ole Miss seemed to be the better football team going into that contest, but Mike Leach was able to pull the rabbit out of the hat, so to speak, and be able to come up with the game plan that stifled Lane Kiffin and his guys and be able to come away with the win. So I'm right there with you. I'm so glad that they're able to be able to get that victory for him in his final game, kind of do it the Mike Leach way and win a rivalry game there against the boys over from Oxford. And then to hear Lane Kiffin talk about on the other side, understanding the kind of bigger picture to all of this and understanding how important it is for Mississippi State to be able to celebrate that victory as well. So, of course, he wants to win it, but he understands the bigger picture of it as he reminisced today. So it was really cool to see that, not knowing that what we were watching was him coaching in his final football game.
Yeah, and so we will continue to talk more about Mike Leach really through the week as we honor his life, and as many are doing across college football. Do want to talk some NFL, look at the power rankings as we finished up another week in the National Football League. Monday Night Football wrapped up last night. What are the power rankings looking like?
There's some surprises and there's some things that have stayed the same. One thing stayed the same is Philadelphia Eagles coming in at number 1. The obvious number 1 choice there in the power rankings at 12-1. Coming in at number 2, once again, no change. The Kansas City Chiefs there at 10-3. Sharing that same 10-3 record, the number 3 team remains the number 3 team, the Buffalo Bills. At number 4, the Dallas Cowboys got by through the skin of their teeth against the Houston Texans, but they are now improved to 10-3. They remain at number 4. Making the biggest jump this week, or one of the biggest jumps, San Francisco 49ers in at number 5.
Wow.
After that win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're now 9-4. The Brock Purdy-led San Francisco 49ers looking really good at home against Tom Brady and the Bucs. Minnesota Vikings are 10-3, but they lost their last game to the Detroit Lions, so they fall a spot in the polls, even though they're 10-3. They're at number 6. Cincinnati Bengals are in at number 7. They've looked better and better each week here. Bump up another spot in the polls there at 9-4 at number 7. The Miami Dolphins are 8-5. Lost 2 in a row now. Both games out in California. 2 on the Dolphins coming in at number 8. At number 9, the Baltimore Ravens at 9-4. They're, of course, playing another week this week without Lamar Jackson. They stay at number 9 this week after the game last Sunday. The LA Chargers in at number 10 at 7-6 on the year. I think a lot of people are thinking a little bit more of this football team. They ranked number 17 last week, so they zoom up the polls this week after that impressive win last week. The Seattle Seahawks also 7-6 at number 11. They're down 1 spot. The New York Jets remain at number 12 at 7-6. The Washington Commanders remain at number 13 at 7-5-1. Tennessee Titans down 3 spots to number 14 at 7-6. Number 15, the New England Patriots, they remain at the same spot. And midway through the polls in the NFL, the New York Giants at number 16 at 7-5-1. We'll quickly do the bottom half of the poll. Detroit Lions up 3 spots at number 17. Bucks down 2 spots to number 18, followed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are zooming up the polls there at number 19. Green Bay Packers at 5-8 at number 20. Same record for the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. At number 22, also 5-8, the Atlanta Falcons, as they were in a bye week last week, and this week they'll face off. They'll get a really solid opponent, but then they'll also play a new quarterback this week in Desmond Ridder. At number 23, the Las Vegas Raiders, who lost another game, now sit at 5-8. Also 5-8, the Cleveland Browns, who are in another game with Deshaun Watson. Number 25, the Carolina Panthers, also there at 5-8. The New Orleans Saints are at 4-9 at number 26, followed by the Arizona Cardinals, who lost yesterday to go to 4-9, also losing their quarterback, possibly for the season, in Kyler Murray. 28, the Indianapolis Colts at 4-8-1. Staying the same is the LA Rams at 29 at 4-9 on the season. The Chicago Bears at number 30 at 3-10. 31, the Denver Broncos, who continue to just look awful all year long at 3-10, but not as bad as the team down in the southern part from them, the Houston Texans, who almost got away with the win. Almost got away with the win over the Dallas Cowboys, but their record has a whole bunch of ones in it. 1-11-1.
Tough there for the Houston Texans as we look at the power rankings there. We talked a little bit at the beginning about last night's Patriots-Cardinals game. Kyler Murray goes down with the torn ACL, as that has been confirmed today after some tests. Non-contact injury, but that's tough for the Cardinals, who are already in rough shape this year to lose their starting quarterback. That is not good for Arizona.
Yeah, it's been a year of disappointment for Arizona. You go back to the offseason where Kyler Murray scrubbed his social media of all things Arizona Cardinals. He wanted another deal, and he thought he was deserving of another deal. And I think that he was playing very well, but obviously he was trying to mitigate risk for his own body. So the Arizona Cardinals extended the GM, extended the head coach, and then gave Kyler Murray an extension, signed for a $230 million deal. I think about 190 of it was in guaranteed cash. And there were some stipulations in the deal. People were talking about how he likes the video game a lot and whatnot. There was a lot of back alley talks, and people were wondering where it all came from. So maybe some hostility inside that locker room. And then it spilled over to the field, because everything, usually that stuff stays off the field. But then it spilled over into the field, and that's where we got some of the weird kind of back talk about, if Kyler really, preps every single week like he should and whatnot. And, all that's out the window now, because obviously he has a season-ending injury, but it just kind of adds to the disappointment once again for a team that has been filled with disappointment throughout the course of the season, and then especially now that Kyler Murray's done for the year.
Cliff Kingsbury, hang on.
That's kind of the talk right now. I think they give him one more year. I think they do give him one more year to see if they can salvage this next year, because they extended him this year. But there's some talk that the owner there has really, really deep pockets, and he is not afraid to buy somebody out and maybe fire him. But I think that this combo comes hand in hand. Kyler and Cliff, they obviously have a strong background, so I think they'll give it one more year, seeing as to how this year played out. But I won't be a bit surprised if they fire him and Cliff Kingsbury is looking for somewhere else to go.
As far as the Patriots offense, I mean, I think we've seen frustration from Mac Jones and other folks on the offensive side of the ball. Do you think changes will be made there?
I do. There are some rumors, there are some talk, and there was some talk even today that if Cliff Kingsbury does get fired in Arizona, a possible landing spot for him, if he's trying to get another head coaching position, would be to come back as the offensive coordinator, and maybe for a team like the New England Patriots, because it is clear to me that the New England Patriots need work offensively. Everybody thought it was curious, a little head scratching when Bill Belichick, he's got 6 Super Bowls. You don't question his football talent. You don't question his football intellect. But sometimes this decision making has been a little questionable. Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator, never called an offensive play, is now the play caller for this offense with a quarterback in his second year. It wasn't like a Tom Brady. It's not a Peyton Manning. It's not a guy that's been there for forever. It's a guy still developing in his second year. And we can tell that the offense has just not been solid. There's been pockets where they've looked okay. They look good. They looked good yesterday, but they also looked good yesterday against a team that had just lost their starting quarterback, and you don't know mentally where they were after that situation. So you kind of have to mitigate all of the perceived victories and look at it in the big picture. I do think this team needs to retool offensively, and the biggest part of it, quarterback development and play calling, and move Matt Patricia to the other side of the ball, make Joe Judge go back to special teams, and then bring in a real offensive coordinator in, whether it's maybe if Bill O'Brien wants to come back, if he wants to, leave Tuscaloosa and come back to the NFL ranks, or if Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach, if he does get fired in Arizona, you want a football offensive mind there. It's so wild that we're talking about offensive minds on the day that we're celebrating Mike Leach. I think the Patriots need somebody there with an offensive mind standpoint, because clearly right now it's not working to the degree that which it should be for a team that's playoff bound.
Yeah, that's very true. So we'll see if the Patriots pull anything in the off season. We'll jump to a break here, come back, give our final thoughts on Alabama-Memphis tonight, see what Nate Oates thinks about it as well. We'll do that on the other side.
Get our best deals of the year with exceptional trade-in values during the Season of Giving Back sales event at the Kia Store, Anniston, Oxford, and Rainbow City, Gadsden. There's never been a better time to get more for your old car, truck, or SUV. Stuck in a loan or lease? The Kia Store wants to get you released. For a limited time, get up to $2,000 over Kelley Blue Book fair market value for any trade, so you can drive a new, more fuel-efficient Kia for less. We have a great selection of new Kias, including the all-new 2023 Sportage and Nero SUV. SUVs. Sporty, fun to drive Forte and Soul. Plus, Telluride, Seltos, and Sorrento SUVs. All available with 0 down payment and super low financing. Worried that your credit is on the naughty list? The Kia Store has partnered with even more lenders that will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Lower prices, exceptional trade-in values, and a better buying experience at the Kia Store, Anniston, Oxford, and Rainbow City, Gadsden, or online at mykiastore.com. Subject to lender approval, offers not combined.
Being in the Army National Guard is about more than serving your country. It's about being there for your community when your neighbors need you most. The Army National Guard makes college affordable, and serving part-time can help you graduate debt-free. Do you want to stay close to friends and family? The Guard allows you to serve close to home. Serving part-time in the Army National Guard lets you have the life you want. Learn more by visiting nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the Alabama Army National Guard. Aired by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health.
Nine.
Hey, do you know how to get to Lubbock?
You got to take 61 up to 23.
Hey, Dillon East, right? You're the coach at Dillon East. You've lost your inner pirate. Sword. Have you ever heard swing your sword? You're supposed to swing your sword like this. You're swinging yours like this. I mean, you've got to find your inner pirate. A lot of times things just happen for a reason. We don't know why God wants it that way, but you can't make the best out of it until you get back your inner pirate. You might be the luckiest man alive and not even know it.
Another classic Mike Leach there from the TV show Friday Night Lights. I was a huge Friday Night Lights fan. And I remember that scene and just a classic moment from the pirate himself, Mike Leach.
Yeah, and obviously there's a great television show. I think if you're ranking top 15, 20 television shows, according to most critics and fans, they would probably put Friday Night Lights up there with one of the best ones. And he came in there, right in there, and added his own swing in there. Didn't sound like a professional actor, but he was Mike Leach. And it's so unmistakably him. And I love the fact that they wrote that part for him, and it's still him. It's basically Mike Leach. He's not playing character. It's who he is.
It is, and just another cool moment from him. Before we get out of here today, I've got to get back to this Alabama-Memphis game happening tonight, and it's a big one for Alabama. We talked about it at the top of the show. This is one of those that you could see being a somewhat of a trap game for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, and I think that, obviously with Memphis playing really well, I think they've woken up Alabama a little bit, and probably more so had Auburn beat them. It'd be easier to look ahead to Gonzaga, but this is a Memphis team that comes in 8-2. They like to run the ball. Like to run as far as with their guards, have great guard play. Davis comes in averaging 18 points per game for them. So we'll see a spirited effort. I know Memphis will be riding high because they just beat Auburn, and they also, we keep talking about how Alabama knocked off two top one teams or top 5 teams or whatever North Carolina was. They were number 1 at the time, so 2 number 1 teams in a 20-day span. Well, Memphis is trying to knock off a number 11 team and a number 4 team within about a 5-day span, a 4-day span. So, Memphis is chasing their own history, so to speak, as well.
And we talked about this yesterday. We mentioned it that for the first time under Nick Saban, Alabama basketball is ranked higher than Alabama football, with basketball being 4 now and football being 5. And Nado's kind of spoke to that.
Yeah, he did speak to that. He did give a little caveat there at the end about what he thought about the football rankings, but he also had to praise the football program and what they've been able to do with consistency of success.
I'll say this. I think that speaks to the level of football that Nick Saban has brought to Alabama. Like, wow. Like, how long has he been here? How many years? 16 years. So for 16 years, there's a lot of polls that have come out. The football team's been, my guess is he's been number 1 or 2 in half of them. I like the basketball team would have had to been pretty good to be ranked ahead of him. So, and you know what? Maybe when he was getting it built in the first year or two, I don't know what obviously the basketball program wasn't at the level we've gotten it to now. So I think it speaks to how ridiculous the football program is around here for it to go that long. Look, on our end, we're just trying to get a little bit better every day. And we were obviously, coming off a big win over number 1 team on the road. So people recognize it. We also realize how fleeting that stuff can be. What's North Carolina ranked today? They're not. They were number 1 2 weeks ago. Okay. So it's nice to be ranked high. Let's, build it up for our fans. Let's get everybody out here Tuesday. Get the number 4 ranked team in the country playing at home against Memphis, who's a really good team. It'll be a great game. But if you don't take care of business today, it's going to be gone. If you don't take care of business tomorrow, the rankings are out the window. So, and I'll say this too. Me and Coach Sampson talked before the Houston game. He's an unbelievable coach. We both said win or lose, we're both going to get a lot better from this game. We won that game last year. They went to an Elite 8 without Mark and Sasser, either one. Okay? And I talked to our team. It's a lot easier to handle failure most of the time than it is to handle success. So we just had some success. Are we mature enough to handle the success that we've had? Because last year we weren't. Last year we had some success and we didn't handle it well. We've been talking about that all summer, all fall, all coming into this. The test is here. We've now gotten the success. Can we handle the success? Football team still fit best football. And to be honest with you, that ranking's probably off too, to be honest with you. They're probably better than the 5th best football team in the country. They're just whoever they lost to, however those rankings are determined, they probably deserve to be in the play. Not probably, they do deserve to be in the playoffs, but they're not. So we'll see if we deserve the number 4 ranking or not tomorrow.
So Nate Oates putting his word into the committee, however those rankings are made, as he said.
Yeah, politicking a little bit. I know if Alabama would have been in, he'd have been probably a little bit more lenient, but he's taking a little jab there at the committee like a lot of people did.
That is all the time we have for you today. It's been a busy show. We'll be back with you tomorrow as we'll be talking more on the life and legacy of Coach Mike Leach, college football, college basketball, all that coming up tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll talk to you later.
Fox